It might indicate something needs attention. Yeah, cracking, look for deterioration, like the rubber's just getting old, might need to be replaced. While you're sitting here looking at the wheels, give the wheels a spin. Make sure they're turning freely. If the brake's rubbing, that can cause an issue, whether it's disc or rim brakes. If there's a problem with the bearings, if a tire is bulging, it might be catching on the rim. If your wheel's out of true, it'll catch on the fork or on the brake. So give it a spin, should spin nice and smooth. And then grab the wheel kind of at the top, and you can do this with the bike sitting down. Grab the wheel at the top and just wiggle it back and like side to side. And what you're feeling for is like free movement between two stops, like chunk, 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 like that. You can flex it. Like I could flex this over and run it into the brake pads if I want to, if I push hard enough. This is something you can do with like 2 fingertips. Not a lot of effort to do this. If you notice that free play and where it's coming in and hitting 2 hard stops, the bearings and the hub probably need to be adjusted. And then one thing also you'll want to check while you're looking at your wheels is your axles. Whether it's a quick release skewer, old fashioned like this, whether you've got a new bike with a through axle, make sure it's tight. If you do have an open dropout, like a quick release, where when you open that up, it kind of drops out of the wheel without removing anything, it's a good idea to hold the bike nice and upright, open that skewer or loosen it up, make sure the bike is nice and upright, not leaning over either way, and tighten it back. Because if the wheel is loose and it was tightened like out of line, that will cause issues like brake rub. It will eventually settle in on you on the ride, and then it'll cause brake rub if it wasn't causing it up front. And just general problems, with that.
So tapping it down, then once you put it on the ground, open the thing, and then kind of...
So open it with the bike upright. Make sure the bike is nice and steady. I will usually, on the front wheel, I'll put my hand up here on the stem and just really gentle pressure down. Just holding the bike as perfectly upright as I can, pressing down very slightly, and then I'll close the axle back. And on the rear, I'll do the same thing, but with my hand on the saddle. Just holding the bike nice and upright, open it, and then close it right back. And that's just to make sure that the axle is fully seated up into the frame so that there's no room for something to settle in later and cause problems. Let's see, plain hub. If you do notice that the rim has a wobble to it, look for a broken spoke or a spoke that's loose. You can just kind of grab the spokes around the wheel. They should feel nice and taut. If one is like loose and slopping around or it's broken completely, then that's something you need to get addressed before you go ride your bike. And then, once your wheels are in good shape, the next thing on my list that I've definitely reordered is go charge your batteries. 10 years ago that was lights. These days it's electronic drivetrains, it's GPS units, lights still. But there's a lot of electronics on modern bikes. Even if you don't have electronic shifting, you probably have like a bike computer or a light that you're going to use on every ride. Just gotta make sure they're charged. Go ahead and charge them when you're doing your inspection, when you're kind of evaluating things, so that if you do need to replace a battery or have something addressed, it's going to be ready for you when you go ride your bike. Make sure you've got all your charge cables all in one place, where you have a nice tidy little, I find it's easier anyway to have all your charge cables one place. You've got your Garmin, your headlight, your taillight, maybe your e-bike battery if you're riding an e-bike, maybe your electronic drivetrain batteries. If that, just have it all in one place on a kitchen counter, a workbench, dresser, or something like that. And then just after a ride, before a ride, everything's all set out. Make sure it's all charged or charging after a ride. The times are changing. And only then, after you've got your batteries on the charger, and after you know your wheels are straightforward, or at least you know what's up with your wheels, then clean your bike. If it's real dirty, real dusty, real dingy, yeah, give it a wash. If the drivetrain's real greasy and grungy, give it a scrub. If you do decide to scrub your drivetrain, do the drivetrain first, so you don't splatter black, greasy, grimy stuff all over the rest of your bike that you've already cleaned. And as you're cleaning the bike, give it an inspection. Now, let's say your bike is pretty dang clean. I don't think I need to wash this. It's still probably a good idea to grab a little microfiber towel and just dust it off. And as you work around the frame, just kind of let your eyes guide you. Look for damage. The bike fallen over, got hit. I know we've seen in here, last year before, someone's bike had fallen over in the garage during the winter, taking a pretty hard ding to the carbon, ended up having to send that one out for repair. Something that just had happened over the winter. Unfortunate, but I was able to get it addressed and get that bike back in operation. Yeah, but just as you're wiping down the bike, let your eyes guide you. Inspect over the frame, inspect over your drivetrain.
What's a drivetrain?
Drivetrain is all your moving bits that connect your feet to the rear wheel. So your crank, your chain, your derailleurs, your cassette or freewheel, all those pieces that tend to get a little dirty and dingy. Wipe them down if you want. Look for rust, though rust is not that big a deal if it's a little surface corrosion. Look for anything that seems out of place. I will tell you, every year I get questions where somebody's gotten their bike out. Either it's a new bike to them or it's the first time they've gotten the bike out for the year and they're looking at their drivetrain, they're like, I've got a broken tooth on my chainring, or I've got a broken tooth on my cassette. And they bring the bike in and I'm like, nope, that's like that from the factory. Modern bikes, if you look at all the gears, you can actually kind of track it, especially on the cassette back there. You'll see each cog, like kind of in an arcing row, will have a tooth that's a little shorter or twisted one way or chamfered on one edge. And that's all there by design to help it shift properly, to change over from gear to gear properly. Same thing on the chainring. If you see a tooth and you're afraid it's damaged, look on the other side of the chainring in the same location and you'll probably see a matching set of teeth that are exactly the same shape and change in height. And if that's the case, nothing to worry about. That's just part of the design of the chainring, the gear to help it shift properly. Let's see, look over your contact points, things you're going to be touching on the bike. That's your saddle, your grips, bar tape, hoods on the levers on a drop bar bike, and your pedals. Look to make sure they're going to be in good shape. You know, if your saddle's got some tears and wear to it, might be worth replacing. Same thing for your bar tape. One thing that easily gets overlooked on road bikes are your hoods, which are the rubber covers over your brake levers and shifters. Those are replaceable. They are not expensive. If you let them go too long and they get all sticky and worn and gross, you'll have a miserable time every time you take your bike out. And then you'll go spend the 15 or 20 bucks on a new set of hoods and you'll be like, why didn't I do this 6 months ago? It's super easy to do. There are a few cases where it's actually kind of complicated for us to change those out. Those are corner cases. Most of the time it's a 10-minute job and we can swap them out pretty easily. I will say if you have an older bike, sometimes they're no longer in production. So if yours are getting gross, don't just go tear them off because you may not be able to get a replacement without going on eBay looking for like old stock. But if you have any questions about that, come here. We can help you out either finding a replacement part or letting you know if they don't exist anymore. As I mentioned, you're looking for play in the wheels and the hubs. When you do that, there's two other sets of bearings on the bike that you want to check for play. And that is your headset, which is your steering bearings, right here at the head tube. The way you're going to check that for play is you're going to stand next to the bike, you're going to turn the handlebars about 90 degrees to the side. You're going to grab your front brake so it can't roll side to side. And then you're going to put your hand right up here on the upper bearing cover, upper headset, where the frame transitions into whatever spacers and things are there. And you're just going to put your hand there and very, very gently, again, you're not pushing hard in this, you're just very, very gently. Try to rock the bike back and forth, front to back. And you turn the wheel sideways so it can't be anything to do with the wheel rolling. And you're just going to nudge. And again, just like with fingertips, it does not take a lot of effort. And you're just going to rock back and forth and feel right there at the top bearing of the headset if there's any free movement or play back and forth between two stops. If there is, that's something that needs adjusted. It's typically very easy to adjust. We can do it here. It does not take long. If you ignore that and you run a bike with a loose headset long term, you can actually damage the frame. So that's not something you want to do. Again, this is something where if I like really push hard on this, I can like make things move. But again,
it should be easy.
90 degrees to the side, grab the front brake, fingers at the upper bearing, gently rock the bike back and forth, front and back. And if you feel some notching, get it addressed. If not, don't go hunting for it. It's pretty obvious if it's there.
Other than wearing it out, what would the experience be like riding with a loose headset?
So if a loose headset, if a headset's loose while you're riding it, a real giveaway, however, can be caused by other things, is when you hit your front brake, you feel the handlebars like notch and rock back and forth. There are other things that can cause that, things to do with disc brake pads having a little bit of play in the caliper, things that are not a problem at all. So if you grab your front brake and you feel like a little notching, don't like freak out, but do get it checked. Do check your headset next time you stop. Just turn the handlebars aside and rock back and forth and see if it's there. That's pretty much the only kind of dead giveaway that your headset's loose is that you grab the front brake and it kind of like notches and rocks back and forth a little bit. The last set of bearings that you want to check into is your bottom bracket, which is the name for your crank bearing set down here at the bottom of the bike. And the way we're going to check for play there is very, very similar to how we've checked for other things. I will move one crank to be straight in line with the seat tube right here. Almost up and down, but just in line with the seat tube. And then you're standing astride the bike, I'm going to grab the crank arm, and I'm going to try to move the crank arm laterally, left and right, side to side. Just grab the crank arm, push back and forth. Again, you're not pushing really hard. You're just kind of using a little bit of force, very gentle, just fingertips. And if there's free play with stops, get it checked. If not, you're good. Keep going on with the checklist. One thing that's probably hard to, it's hard at home to know 100% for sure if it's A-okay or not, but it's really easy to get an eyeball on, is you should check your derailleur hanger while you're looking over your bike and cleaning it. Your derailleur hanger is the little tab back here that hangs down from the frame that the rear derailleur bolts into. On many modern bikes, it's a separate piece of metal that bolts into the frame. So commonly it's either silver or black. You'll see a couple bolts or screws that attach it to the frame, and then the derailleur bolts into that. On older steel frames like this, it's all one piece with the frame. It is designed to be a breakaway piece. It's designed to fail. It's designed to bend and break easily. So that if something calamitous happens with your drivetrain, like a stick gets caught in it or something's bent out of alignment and gets jammed into the spokes, it breaks before your frame does. So vintage bikes like this one, if that hanger gets trashed, the whole frame is toast. Whereas on modern bikes, it's a $20 or $30 part, maybe a little bit more expensive for some bikes, but it's a replaceable piece. If you're ever traveling to an event, you've got a ride in North Carolina or Virginia or somewhere way further far-flung than that, I highly recommend investing in a spare derailleur hanger for your bike. They are not a universal piece, unfortunately. There are about 650 different shapes of derailleur hangers out there in the world right now. Approximately, it's probably going up. There's actually movement in the industry to go to a universal standard going forward, but it won't be backwards compatible with older bikes. Because there's so many different shapes and each brand has their own handful of different designs that they use, if you're traveling with your bike and that bends or breaks, you're gonna have to find probably a dealer for the bike brand that you have and hope that they have that part in stock, or you're just not riding your bike. So if you're traveling to a big event that you've paid and made plans and it's a big deal, have a spare. I've gone to a big event and seen somebody in the first 2 miles break a derailleur hanger and have to walk back to the start line and just phone it in for the day. And they've probably driven like 2 states to get to that ride. Were you on that, Death March? Yeah, probably, yeah. Yeah, it was, I was like, sorry man, I hope you got a spare, somebody has one back there. All right, so check the hanger, look at the drivetrain. How to eyeball your derailleur hanger. So how you're gonna check the derailleur hanger is you're gonna stand kind of behind your bike, and I'm gonna lift this up, and so standing behind the bike, you'll see a wheel, a derailleur, and the pulley cages hanging down here. And the pulley cages, like where the chain feeds through the derailleur, should be about as perfectly vertical as it possibly can be. There's some weird exceptions with modern, some of the high-end electronic drivetrains, but generally speaking, that pulley cage can hang straight down. If it's bent in towards the spokes at all, get it checked, because that could lead to problems.
And if it's bent in towards the spokes, you might not even be able to shift into your lowest gear.
Yeah,
correct?
So if it's bent in towards the spokes, the reason that creates problems is number one, when it's bent, the shifter is no longer moving the derailleur the appropriate spacing between gears, so your shifting won't be working properly. You'll have like ghost shifting, the chain will be jumping around on you. And then the worst case scenario is when you shift into your lowest gear, which is your big cogs in the back, that cage or the pulleys can catch a spoke and then get very violently just ripped around, and you can break a derailleur, a wheel, a frame, potentially, hopefully just your hanger, because that's its job.
Right, but that's worst case scenario.
Yeah, but it can be bad. Yes?
I was gonna say, having broken 3 at least, just falling over on your bike on that side will break it.
Yeah, so again, it's designed to be really soft and bendable, but to protect the frame. The downside of that is, if the bike just falls over on the drive side, then that can be enough to bend it enough to cause problems. As a quick aside, that just means a recommendation I have for anytime you're parking your bike is to lean it with the drive side like facing out like that, right? And if you're ever just pulled over side of the road or something and you're trying to figure out a place to lean your bike against something, just lay the thing down.
Yeah.
It's not going to hurt anything. And when you lay it down with the gears facing up. And as long as nobody goes and steps on it, it's fine. Nothing's really going to get hurt.
And that goes too for if you put it in the back of your vehicle.
Yeah,
Like you're taking-
especially transportation, in the back of a van, back of a truck. If you are just laying down your bike, or even just leaning it across like the back of a minivan or something like that, always lean it to where that rear derailleur is facing up. The gears are facing up and don't have any pressure on them. Okay, back to the kind of general inspection. And then sort of last major mechanical kind of component to look at that you can just do a visual inspection or tactile without riding the bike is your brakes. Grab your brakes. Make sure they feel like they're moving freely. The levers aren't dragging. It doesn't take a lot of effort to pull them. When they hit their stop, when everything contacts, it's a nice firm point of contact, and they do stop the wheels from turning. So just do a quick hand check. Who here has hydraulic disc brakes on their bike? Do any of you with hydraulic disc brakes hang your bike upside down in the garage or in the shed? If you do, or if the bike ever does end up upside down or hanging vertically on a wall by a wheel hook or something like that, that's okay. When you bring the bike down, you might grab your brakes and they pull straight to the bar. And you pump them a couple times. After a couple pumps, they start feeling normal. That's a-okay. What's happened is while the bike was upside down, the hydraulic fluid that is in that system has basically just drained back from the caliper, inverted back down to the lever. And then so when you flip the bike back over, you have to kind of pump it and push that fluid back down and push the pistons back out. The only concerns with doing that are sometimes those pistons don't come out evenly, so you might give it a little bit of brake rub. Each time after that, you might have to do a small brake adjustment. In a perfect world, it's fine. If your bike stays pretty clean, you're probably fine, but every once in a while, you might get a little brake rub here or there. Now, if you have a hydraulic brake system and you go and pull your brakes and they go straight to the bar, and you pump them a little bit and they start feeling good, okay, great. Step away from them for 30 seconds, a minute. Not very long at all, but 10 or 20 seconds at a minimum. And then come back and grab them again. They should still feel good. If they go back to pulling to the bar, every time you step away for a moment, there's air inside the hydraulic system, and that will need to be bled to get the air out, to purge the air and get more fluid in there. And that's something we can take care of here. Or if you're really mechanically inclined, we sell the bleed kit, so you can pick one up and do it at home. Though it is sometimes kind of messy, depending on the system you have. All right. Any questions so far? All right, now you notice I haven't really talked about shifting yet, and that's because we still got one more thing before we hop on the bike to ride it, because unless you have a work stand at home, then you can't really test your shifting out without hopping on the bike and pedaling it around. But we want to do our ABC safety check before we hop on our bike, even if it's just for a test ride up and down the driveway. And our ABC safety check, I haven't filled out to F this year. I think one year I got to like HI or J or something like that. But the ABCD is the most common one. And so A is both A for air in your tires, make sure they're inflated. A for axles, make sure they're tight. Those are the two most important things so that the bike is going to roll safely, the wheels aren't going to fall off. B is brakes, which is the next most important thing. Once you're rolling, you want to be able to stop. C is for your chain, make sure it is in good shape. Something for the chain, you're making sure it's lubricated if it needs to be oiled. with whatever chain lube you use. Who here has a wax chain on their bike? If you are getting the bike out for the spring, think about if you need to do a hot dip or apply some of the Super Secret or whatever brand of wax additive you may use. Make sure it's lubricated and ready to go. One important thing when you're just getting the bike down out of the garage before you hop on it and start pedaling it is to pedal it but not be on the bike. And the reason is, I'll do this. So right now, I just forced the shifter over. But that could have happened by accident, just moving the bike around in the garage over the winter, or just getting the bike out, hanging up, get it down from hanging up, taking it out to the car. And if I hop on this right now and start pedaling, it's gonna mash and gnash some gears and potentially damage something. So before I start riding, I'm just gonna lift the bike up, pedal the pedals forwards, let that gear kind of carry over, let the chain follow onto whatever gear the shifters are in. And that's just a good idea every time you go ride your bike. You pull the bike off the rack on the car, just give the pedals a little spin forwards, make sure nothing's going to, mash and gnash when you hop on and start putting your body weight down on the pedals. And so consider that part of the C for chain. D is a drop test, and this is real simple. You're gonna pick the bike up about 6 inches off the ground, drop it down, and you're gonna listen for noises. Some noises are normal. That higher pitch rattly sound is my chain rattling against the backside of the chain ring. That little more knocky sound is my free hub mechanism and the rear wheel catching as things bounce around. If I just do the front, you hear a little bit of a rattle here from the housing. That's all normal, nothing to worry about there. If you hear a big ka-clunk, some rattles, a crunch or a crack or a creak or something like that, maybe something needs checked out. But just do a drop test, make sure everything's good there. Something I haven't really talked about that can come up when you do the drop test is your flat kit, which I'll get to in a second. When you're doing a drop test, be aware that you might have rattly stuff in a bag. So if you're hearing some weird rattles, like, oh gosh, what was that? Grab your seat pack and do it again and see if that shuts it up. Because you may just have a wrench rattling against a tire lever inside your seat pack, and that's all that it is, and it's okay. So, after that, my E and F. E is electronics. Make sure you've got your Garmin. Your electronic shifting system batteries are on and charged. Make sure that you've got your lights if you carry them. And then F is flat kit. Make sure you've got means to fix flat, whatever emergency supplies you carry on the bike, which I'm sure there'll be whole clinics about. Make sure whatever you intend to carry with you is with you. All right. And then once you've got your kind of safety check done, hop on the bike and go for a test ride. And if it's the first time the bike's getting down out of the garage, you want to do something pretty gentle, like just parking lot, side streets, up and down your driveway, not getting too crazy. Just hop on, push off, start rolling. Make sure everything seems to be rolling smoothly. Grab the brakes, make sure you're stopping smoothly. Shift through the gears. Make sure all the shifting seems to be working properly. Once everything seems safe and just like a pretty controlled, like just real quick, and I'm talking this is like a 2-minute job around the driveway, right? Like you should know pretty quickly if everything's working the way it's supposed to. And if it is, then before you get everything together to go on a big ride, do just one around the neighborhood. Do something that's a little bit more. Take it to the greenway if you don't live on a road that's conducive to cycling, and just do like a mile or something, just a little shakedown, just to make sure everything feels good. Because if something seems amiss, it's like, oh, now that I'm actually riding for more than 50 feet up and down the driveway, I notice my handlebars are a little askew, and I should get that addressed. Rather than waiting to find that out until you're on the first mile of a 25-mile ride, you don't want to be off the back of it. And then listen for any weird noises that come up that you don't remember being there the last season of the road. Okay.
Questions for Ernie?
Yes.
So when you clean the drivetrain, do you have to let it dry before you ride it?
So
Good question.
there'll probably be a whole cleaning clinic too, I'm sure.
Yes, there
but
will
the
be.
gist of a drivetrain clean, if it's really gross, and you're trying to scrub it down, you're probably going to be using a degreaser product that's made for cutting through all the grease and grime on a drivetrain. Probably have some brushes or a little case cleaner that you're running the chain through, and you're going to scrub it down. Typically, you rinse it off after that with clean water from a hose or a bucket, and then in a perfect world, you get the chain pretty dry. if everything else is in good shape, like you can just leave it out in the sun for a minute. You know, maybe not direct sun. If you got a fancy paint job, you don't want to get extra fade on for no reason. There's fancy paint jobs out there that I would not want my bike for an extra 30 minutes in the sun. No, yeah, it doesn't have to be perfectly dry. There's a couple ways that you can, depending on what chain lubricant you're using. If you're using anything that's like an oil style lube, or like the rock and roll product that we sell back here where it has kind of a carrier fluid with it, most of that's going to displace the water. Like when you apply the chain lube, it's going to push the water out of the way, and that lubricant's going to get to the metal and stick to it, and you don't really have anything to worry about. I could see some cases where, you know, certain, like the really kind of like pasty wax lubes, like we used to sell the Muck Off dry lube. It was kind of this like thick white substance that you almost have to like rub it into the chain to get it to like work in there. That stuff didn't flow very freely, and so there's no way it was displacing the water very well. So yeah, you might want to like, leave it in the sun for a minute and kind of wipe the chain dry with a towel and make sure it's as dry as possible. But most chain lubes are going to displace the water, and you don't really need to worry about it. When you clean your bike, any water that's left just residually on the bike, most folks just worry about wiping down the paint just so you don't get water spots, kind of like washing your car. Little water dots that are on the rest of the bike, they're going to dry on a lot of components. You probably won't even know, like on a spoke, you're probably never going to notice a water spot on a spoke, right? If you look really closely, it's there, but nobody's really bothering to look that closely. On steel components that are relatively exposed, things like cassette cogs, your gear clusters, drivetrain pieces, occasionally like some bolts here and there, you might get a little surface corrosion, like that kind of like bright orange surface rust. That's nothing to worry about. If it bothers you, grab a little green or blue, Scotch-Brite pad out of the kitchen and just give it a quick little scrub, just to knock it back. A little surface corrosion is not going to hurt anything. And it's super common, especially if you ever take your bike to a coastal area, take your bike to the beach, leave your bike outside for, I don't know, an hour, maybe two. Doesn't take much, and you'll have little spots of stuff all over the steel. So yeah, I wouldn't be stressed.
So after you wash it, do you ever use what's that called, the Marine 94?
So if you, let's say you wanted to actively push the water out of the chain, there are products for that. WD-40, I do not recommend for bicycle use, but we'll get there. The WD actually stands for water displacer, is what that was developed for, was for like industrial applications where you wanted to get the water out of the way, off the metal. So we sell a product called MO94. It is similar in some ways to WD-40. It's a bit thinner. It dries away a little bit better. It has a Teflon additive, so it can lubricate in some situations. It's not I would not use it as chain lube, but if you spray that onto your chain, it will push the water out of the way, so you don't get any corrosion up in there.
Put it, like what I usually do is put it on like the.
You can use it as kind of a surface treatment. You can wipe it on a rag.
On
the cassette?
The cassette. On the.
You can. I would just go real easy on it. Anything that's like an oily thing that you're putting on your drivetrain, if you use too much and the surfaces stay wet, it's just going to be something for dirt and dust to stick to when you go ride, and you'll start to get some buildup on there. That goes for chain lube too. If you use too much chain lube, it'll just be something for dirt to stick to, and you'll get a bunch of gunk on there, which is why a lot of people like going to like a wax chain system because it stays really dry. For cleaning the bike, you can get really, really particular about it if you want to, but you don't have to.
One more question for Ernie. Nancy.
Yeah, if you have tubeless tires, how do you check if you need more of that fluid inside?
Back to the very first step when I was saying air up your tires. If you have a tubeless system, you should check your tubeless sealant. If you have never checked your tubeless sealant before, then I'll give you the quick rundown right now, and if you'd like to either come by the shop sometime, we can kind of walk you through and demonstrate, or if you've got your bike with you, we can walk you through on your bike. So on tubeless valves, the valve core, the actual valve part that closes and keeps air from escaping, will unthread out of the tip of the valve stem and come out. So you'll open the valve, let all the air out, then you'll unthread the valve core out of the valve stem. Then you move the valve down to the 6 o'clock position on the wheel. Ideally, you've got the wheel up off the ground somehow, like the bike's hanging up somewhere, or a friend or family member's holding it up off the ground. And then you're checking your oil. You're just gonna put a dipstick down in there. Orange Seal, when you buy some of their sealant, comes with like a little plastic dipstick. You you don't need that. A long thin zip tie, a thin bamboo skewer out of the kitchen, a long thin Allen wrench, anything long and thin that will fit down through the valve stem into the tire is what you're looking for. Most tubeless sealant is a milky white color. Some brands are tinted kind of blue or orange or something like that, but most of them are like a milky opaque fluid. And when you put that dipstick down in, you're looking for the tip of the dipstick to get coated maybe like a 1/4 inch up the sides. And when you pull the dipstick out and you see that, you're good. If all you see is little streaks on the corners and maybe a little bit of that fluid on the tip, then the sealant in there is still good. It's just starting to dry out a bit, so you need to add a little bit. And you would add just through the valve stem. And a lot of the brands of sealant we've got over here sell small, kind of like single serve little packs of sealant, little bottles of sealant that have basically an applicator tip where you just stick it on there and squirt it down through the valve stem, and it makes it super easy. There's also some real fancy like syringes with hoses that thread on that you can buy. Some people really, really like those. I don't care for them. They kind of overcomplicate things. They're not terribly expensive though if you wanted to try them out. And then once you've added the requisite amount of sealant, just put the valve core back in, snug it down, air your tire up, go ride. If you are checking the sealant, to back step slightly, so I said you're looking for a milky white fluid. If you put the dipstick down in there and you pull it out, and it's, regardless of the amount of fluid, if it's clear or if it's like gray-black, then you've had a bunch of little tiny punctures, probably. Little bits of wire, little bits of glass, something like that. And the meaningful part of the sealant has been used up, it's been consumed. And so it's not really good anymore. So you will need to add sealant in that case. I do not stress out about opening the tire up, scraping or scrubbing out the old sealant and putting new in. If you're riding regularly, you're probably gonna wear out tires sooner or later. The added weight of the dried sealant inside the tire is not that much. I've seen people like get real meticulous about pulling a tire, scrubbing and scraping it clean. I've done it before. It's an incredible amount of work, and it is worth none of it. Just if you need to add sealant, add sealant. Just don't go overboard. So a road tire, if you're on your road bike, a road tire up to like a 30, at least like a 32 millimeter wide tire, you're running about 2 ounces of sealant per tire. And so the little orange seal bottles over there, they're a 4 ounce bottle. That's enough for 2 whole road bike tires set up fresh from scratch. Like that's plenty, and it's not a large amount of sealant. I've seen riders come in to get a tire changed out, and I go to take off the tire, and there's just like sealant dumping out. I had one a couple weeks ago where after I'd spilled a bunch on the floor, I captured about 3.5 ounces out of one tire. And I was like, yeah, you can go easier on the sealant. He was just adding every 3 months. Which how often to check? I would check every 3 months. You don't have to add every 3 months, but check every 3 months. Because as you get little punctures, that sealant gets used up. And so if you're riding on some of the roads around here where there's lots of little bits of glass, lots of those little wire, like radial tire bits that have come apart of a commercial truck tire on the shoulder, yeah, you'll use up sealant. And I've seen sealant go dry after 3 months around here. I've also seen folks who go a year with the sealant's fine. My gravel bike goes like a year and a half. Of course, I never ride it.
There's that.
We have to change that. All right, well, everybody, thank you to Ernie. We appreciate your time. That was an excellent presentation.